Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the path less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Often regarded as one of the most inspirational endings to a poem in American letters for sure, maybe poetry writ large, maybe all of literature. What if I told you maybe that's not true? What if I told you maybe this is a negative statement on whether or not there is free will? What if I told you that maybe this is not the inspirational quote that you're looking for? I think we've got a pretty good case to be made for that today. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in 3 different playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being 30 must-read poems, a playlist that I'm very proud of thus far. Number 2 being a Robert Frost playlist, a playlist of videos dedicated to Robert Frost. And finally, the poetry discussion playlist, which is cruising towards 700 videos strong. This video itself will have 3 sections: a quick biography of Robert Frost, a discussion over the types of poetry that Robert Frost wrote, which is kind of tenuous, and finally, an analysis of the poem itself. So, who was Robert Frost? Robert Lee Frost was born March 26, 1874, in San Francisco, California. For context, 1874 was the year the first public zoo opened in the United States. It was also the year that Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States, died. California had been a state for just 23 years at the time of Robert Lee Frost's birth. His father, William Prescott Frost Jr., was a teacher, a journalist, and later the editor of the San Francisco Evening Bulletin. He even ran for the post of tax collector, but lost. A strong literary and work ethic example for his son, however, William would die of tuberculosis when Robert was just 11 years old. His mother, Isabella Moody Frost, was a teacher as well. After William's death, Robert's mother would take Robert and his younger sister, Jeannie, all the way across the country to live in Lawrence, Massachusetts, to be helped by Robert's paternal grandfather, William Sr. While attending high school, Frost knew publication for the first time, placing a poem in the high school magazine. But he made money for his writing for the first time in 1894 when My Butterfly, an Elegy, was published in The Independent for $15. Doesn't sound like much, but that is roughly $545 in today's money. December of the next year, Robert married Eleanor White. Together, they would have their first child, Elliot, the next year. And in 1897, Frost began attending Harvard, though he would not finish his degree. The couple would welcome their second child, Leslie, into the world that same year. 1902 would see their third child, Carol. Irma would follow in 1903, and Marjorie in 1905. Eleanor Bettina was born in 1907. Unfortunately, Eleanor would live just 1 day. Elliot, likewise, died of cholera in 1900. Robert Frost would continue the family tradition of teaching from 1906 through 1911, after which the Frost family would move to Great Britain, where his literary presence would blossom, and he would publish 2 volumes, A Boy's Will and North of Boston, before returning to the United States in 1915, settling in New Hampshire. This was where he made a profession of writing and teaching off and on from 1917 through 1962 at a host of colleges, including Amherst, Michigan at Ann Arbor, and the prestigious Breadloaf School of English in Ripton. Also during this time, he would lose his wife Eleanor to heart failure in 1938, his daughter Marjorie shortly after childbirth in 1937, and his son Carol would take his own life in 1940. Frost also had to commit his own sister to a mental institution in 1920. It was also during this time that his work would start to garner acclaim. He won 4 Pulitzers in 1924 for New Hampshire, 1931 for Collected Poems, 1937 for A Further Range, and 1943 for A Witness Tree. He became the United States Poet Laureate in 1958, and in 1961 he would recite The Gift outright at the inauguration of John F. Kennedy. Frost was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature 31 times, according to NobelPrize.org, but he never won the award. January 29th of 1963, Robert Frost would complain about chest pain and shortness of breath before dying at 1:50 a.m. He was 88 years old. Robert Frost doesn't really fit cleanly into any definition of poetry, but I find that it is helpful to kind of look at him through the lenses of modernism and romanticism. Modernist literature from 1850 to 1950 captures the struggles of individuals in a rapidly changing world. Key themes include alienation, fragmentation, and the quest for meaning, reflecting on the complexities of identity, societal upheaval, and the impact of technology and war. Romantic poetry is a poetic movement of the late 18th and early 19th centuries that turned toward nature and the interior world of feeling in opposition to the mannered formalism and disciplined scientific inquiry of the Enlightenment era that preceded it. English poets such as William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, John Keats, Percy Bysshe Shelley, William Blake, and Lord Byron produced work that expressed spontaneous feelings, found parallels to their own emotional lives in the natural world, and celebrated creativity rather than logic. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I happen to think that this is a very, very, very misunderstood poem. I happen to think that this is a poem that is often sort of held up as inspirational, and I can see that reading in this poem, though I think that is an incomplete reading. But really, I think that there are several things that this poem could actually really be telling us about human nature. And guys, none of them are good. None of them are good things. I don't think that this is the inspirational hallmark type of poem that it is often set up to be. If we take a look at this poem, Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler, long I stood. So we have contemplation, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, and then the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. So there is this less traveled path that seemingly once it's the rougher go. It is the harder path to take. And so, maybe I owe it to myself and the path to figure this out. Though as for the passing there, had warned them really about the same. Now that's a confusing couplet. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. One isn't more warned than the other, or are we saying that there is a bend in both of these paths, and we can't see past the bend, but the part that we see, they're both kind of worn the same? Well, then how do we know that the one is not worn? But we'll get to some heavier stuff here. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. So even the path that has been well trodden has not been well trodden today. They're both messy paths. There's work to be done on both paths, I think, is the sort of message to be taken from this. I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So I don't know if I'll ever be back here. So I have to pick one. Probably it's only going to be one. We'll get back to this in a moment. I shall be telling this with a sigh. We're just going to highlight that word. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. This poem is often used to talk about sort of individuality. It is often, and I can see that there. But guys, this really might be about the fact that there's no free will. Just briefly, we will take this detour very quickly. If the choice of the path does not matter, then his destination does not matter. It cannot be that the choice of the path does not matter, but the destination does matter. It cannot be that the choice of the path does matter, but the destination does not matter. You can't have both worlds, right? So is this a statement on the fact that it doesn't matter where I'm going? No matter what choice I make, it is just an illusion of choice. I think that reading is there to be had, but the more common reading that we get from this poem is about individuality. It's about personal freedom. I want to take the road less traveled, and so I did. And because I did, that has made all the difference. That's the normal reading of this poem. There's also a reading of this poem that is about fate or destiny. It does not matter which road I take. The end point is going to be where I'm supposed to be, because I'm supposed to be there. Now, this is sort of in contradiction to what I said about the fact that the reading of this could be that there is no free will. Why would I present these things as combative? Well, because if you are of the opinion that there is no free will, I think if you were of the opinion that the question is whether or not there is free will, is there free will, is there no free will, then I don't think you are someone who really accepts fate or destiny as an argument. If you are someone who accepts fate or destiny as an argument, I don't think you are in the free will conversation. I think you have a different understanding of that paradigm, which is free will, no free will, it doesn't matter. The fate is set, right? So you could have menial sort of decisions along the way. There's no you if you go back ancient time, right? Like the idea of destiny and fate was such that you could make really big decisions along the way. You could screw up really big along the way. You're still ending up at that endpoint of fate, which is kind of an argument about free will and kind of an argument not about free will. It's an argument about free will along the way, but an argument against free will at the end. But here's what I want to talk about. So we talked about the inspirational reading of this poem. We talked about the fate or destiny reading of this poem. I am destined to go wherever it is that I will end up, so it doesn't matter which path that I choose. We talked about the free will implications of this poem. I want to talk about this. That sigh. Our speaker here is saying later, much later, there was this day where I had this decision to make. And I could take one road or I could take the harder road. I took the harder road. In my opinion, my reading of this, what that is saying is, especially coming from someone like Robert Frost, someone who made his living with words, that is not the common way to make your living. That is not the easy way to make your living. That is not having a 9 to 5 clocking in and taking home a paycheck. The argument here to me is, look, you can go through your life the easy way. That's the worn path. And you'll get somewhere. You'll get somewhere eventually. You'll be in a good place. That'll be all right. Or you can take that harder road, baby. You can set aside and say, I want to choose the path that I am on. It's going to take more work. I've got to do some limb cutting along the way. I've got to do some brush clearing along the way. I've got to mow the grass, take my scythe with me, my scythe, and get away some of that long grass. I've got to do that, but it's my path, right? That is the creative path, the path of the creative type. I think that's what's going on here, but it has to be recognized that whenever someone is not taking the easy path, whenever someone is taking the route besides wake up, go to work, time in, collect a paycheck, boy, that comes with a lot of risk. A lot of risk in that lifestyle there. That sigh. I think what's going on with that sigh, that's the literary moment. What is the literary moment? Well, propaganda is created with your end thought in mind. I make a painting which is to be interpreted as the greatness of Stalin, right? Classic propaganda. You look at this painting and you know Stalin's the man. That's propaganda. I have in my mind as the creator what I want you to take from it. Art is different. Art allows a literary moment. That literary moment is this sort of fulcrum on which the interpretation of the piece rests. So, that sigh there, is that a sigh of exasperation? Is that a sigh of contentment? To my reading, that is a sigh of exasperation. To choose the creative life. To choose, and it doesn't have to be the creative life. Though oftentimes, I don't know what else would really be the harder life. And I don't mean the creative life as in a writer, right? You want to build a business. You want to start a literary movement. You want to start a philosophical movement. All of these things are creative types. You want to build a family the way that you see. You have an idea for a blueprint of running a household. That's a creative way to live. It is not the paint by numbers thing that is handed to you by society. All of those things, however, require sacrifice. Sure, so does the 9 to 5. You're sacrificing your time. The sacrifice for the creative lifestyle is going to be time plus. Your time plus your friendships. Your time plus your family. Your time plus maybe your sanity. Your time plus there's no guarantee you're going to make it. And let's not forget that sigh there. That is someone who is either sighing in contentment, man, this is ages and ages since, and I'm glad I took that road less traveled by. There's no glad in that last stanza. I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. That last couplet does not say, I took the road less traveled by, and I am all the better off for it. No. It says that has made all the difference. That sigh, in my opinion, and I'm going to tell you why, that sigh is because our speaker here wonders whether or not what was sacrificed was worth it. Was it worth it to sacrifice time with my family, sacrifice time with my children? Was it worth it to sacrifice what I sacrificed in order that I could just take this road less traveled by? Why would I question that? Why would I say, I think that the speaker here feels he or she has failed, feels that perhaps the sacrifice was not worth the investment. Why would I say that? Because the poem is titled The Road Not Taken. Meaning, that sigh is while our speaker is remembering the road he did not take. That's all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.